Welcome back to LexTalks Legal Topics Simplified, where we like to, you know, break down some of those really complex legal topics into, I guess you could say, bite-sized pieces for all you eager law students out there.
Bite size.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So today we are diving deep into something that you'll definitely encounter in your legal careers.
Yeah.
Administrative adjudication.
It's more common than people realize, and honestly, it's where a lot of the action is these days.
So before we get into the nitty-gritty, can you give us like a quick definition of what administrative adjudication is? Like in a nutshell, what is it?
Sure. So think of it this way.
Okay.
As our society has become more complex,
Right.
governments have had to step up their game in regulating various aspects of life, from the environment to finance technology, you name it.
Right.
Administrative adjudication is essentially the process where government agencies, instead of traditional courts,
Okay.
make decisions and resolve disputes in these specialized areas.
So instead of every dispute ending up in a traditional courtroom, we have these agencies acting as sort of like mini courts within the government itself.
Exactly.
Wow.
It's a way to streamline things, especially for issues that require specialized expertise.
Right.
Traditional courts might not always have the bandwidth or the in-depth knowledge to deal with the complexities of, say, a telecommunications merger
Yeah.
or a patent dispute.
So it's all about efficiency and leveraging specialized knowledge.
Precisely. Plus, administrative adjudication tends to be faster
Okay.
and less formal than traditional court proceedings.
Right.
The speed can be a major advantage in areas where swift decisions are crucial, like trade and commerce.
But this delegation of power to administrative agencies,
Right.
doesn't that raise concerns about potential overreach or bias?
Sure.
After all, these agencies are part of the executive branch.
Yeah.
So how do we ensure they're not just rubber stamping the government's agenda?
That's a great point, and it's where things get really interesting. The growth of administrative adjudication has definitely sparked debates about striking the right balance between efficiency and safeguarding individual rights. We have to remember that while agencies need the power to operate effectively,
Right.
they also need to be held accountable.
So how do we prevent these agencies from becoming too powerful?
Well, for one, we have judicial review.
Okay.
Courts can step in and examine the actions of administrative agencies to ensure they're acting within the bounds of the law and haven't overstepped their authority.
So it's like a check on their power, making sure they're not acting arbitrarily or exceeding their mandate.
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
a key part of ensuring fairness and preventing any abuse of power. But judicial review isn't the only mechanism for control.
Okay.
The agencies themselves are often bound by strict procedural rules and regulations that govern their decision-making process.
Okay. So we've got this system where agencies handle specialized disputes, but their decisions could be reviewed by the courts. But this whole agency acting as a court thing still feels a bit fuzzy to me.
Yeah.
Are we saying they're actually courts, or is there like some other distinction?
That's where the concept of quasi-judicial bodies comes in.
Okay.
These bodies within agencies operate like courts in the sense that they hear evidence, they apply legal principles, and they issue rulings, but they're not technically part of the traditional judicial branch.
Just like a parallel system.
Right.
It's kind of like those specialized medical clinics you see for specific conditions.
A good analogy.
Yeah.
It's all about efficiency and expertise. But this distinction between judicial and quasi-judicial can get tricky.
Okay.
There's a famous case in India, the L. Chandra Kumar case,
Uh-huh.
which dealt with exactly this issue.
Right.
The courts ended up emphasizing that even though these tribunals are meant to streamline things,
Yeah.
their decisions are still subject to scrutiny by higher courts.
So even with this seemingly separate system, there's still an overarching layer of judicial oversight to make sure things are running smoothly.
Absolutely.
Got it.
It's all about maintaining that delicate balance between efficiency and fairness,
Right.
making sure administrative agencies are serving their purpose while staying within the boundaries set by law.
This all sounds really important for law students to understand.
Yes.
We often think of law as like solely happening in courtrooms, but this shows how much legal work happens within these administrative agencies.
Right. And this area of law is only growing as the role of government expands.
Right.
So too does the need for administrative adjudication. That's why it's vital to grasp the fundamentals of how this system works, the distinctions between its various functions, and the safeguards that are in place.
So what you're saying is that administrative adjudication isn't just like some dry academic concept.
Right.
It's actually like a dynamic and evolving field that's increasingly relevant in today's legal landscape.
Absolutely. And it's fascinating, too.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched on the specific challenges that arise when agencies deal with politically sensitive issues.
Right.
That's a whole other can of worms that we can delve into later.
Okay, now I'm intrigued. But for now, let's just take a moment to digest this concept of quasi-judicial function and how it fits into the larger picture of administrative adjudication. Then we can really unpack how those politically charged situations play out.
Great.
Okay, sounds good.
Sounds good. So we've established that quasi-judicial bodies within agencies, they can make decisions with real impact, but they're not traditional courts. It's a fascinating balance, really.
It is. And I imagine this whole setup gets even more complicated when you factor in like politically charged situations.
Right.
These agencies aren't operating in a vacuum. They're part of a larger political system. So how do they navigate those pressures and maintain impartiality?
That's a critical question, and it's a constant tightrope walk for these agencies, I think.
Right.
They have to be incredibly sensitive to even the appearance of bias or political influence. Transparency is key here.
Okay.
The more open and accountable their processes are,
Yeah.
the less room there is for suspicion or accusations of impropriety.
So if an agency is dealing with a hot-button issue, they can't just like make a decision behind closed doors and expect everyone to just accept it.
Exactly. They need to clearly document their reasoning, explain their methodology, and be open to public scrutiny. This not only fosters trust, but also helps to ensure that they're applying the law consistently regardless of political whims.
What happens when an agency's decision, even if it's made transparently and with good intentions, is still unpopular with certain political groups? Do they face pressure to like change course?
Of course, it's inevitable that some decisions will ruffle feathers. The key is that agencies remain focused on their legal mandate, not on appeasing any particular political faction.
Hmm.
Judicial review plays a vital role here.
Okay.
It acts as a safeguard against undue political interference by ensuring that decisions are grounded in solid legal reasoning, not political expediency.
So it's a backstop, making sure that agencies don't succumb to political pressure and stray from their core mission.
Precisely. And that mission is ultimately to uphold the rule of law. Applying regulations fairly and consistently, regardless of who's in power or what the political climate might be. But, it's not just external pressures that agencies have to navigate. There are internal checks and balances as well.
You mean like internal guidelines or procedures that help to keep things on track?
Exactly. We call this administrative procedure. It's a whole set of formal rules and processes that govern how agencies conduct their business, from initiating investigations to making final rulings.
So it's not a free-for-all.
Right.
There's a structured process they have to follow.
Absolutely. And this is important for a number of reasons. Firstly, it ensures fairness and consistency in decision-making.
Okay.
It provides clear guidelines and safeguards to prevent arbitrary or capricious actions. Secondly, it promotes transparency by making the process more visible and understandable to the public. And thirdly, it creates a record that can be reviewed later, either by higher authorities within the agency or by the courts.
So it's like a system of checks and balances within the agency itself, a way to ensure accountability and prevent any internal missteps.
That's a great way to put it. And it works hand in hand with those external safeguards like judicial review.
Yeah.
They reinforce each other to maintain the integrity of the administrative process as a whole.
This is all starting to paint a really comprehensive picture of how administrative adjudication functions. We've got the agencies with their quasi-judicial bodies making decisions.
Yes.
We've got the courts acting as a check on their power.
Right.
And we've got this internal system of administrative procedure helping to ensure fairness and transparency. It's a lot to take in, but it's fascinating to see how all these pieces fit together.
It is. And we haven't even scratched the surface of the many ways administrative agencies impact our daily lives. Next, we should look at specific examples of how these agencies operate in different sectors.
All right, that sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's move on and take a closer look at some of those real-world applications. So we've covered like the structure and the safeguards of administrative adjudication.
Right.
But I think it really hits home when we see how these agencies like impact our daily lives.
Absolutely. They're involved in almost everything from the food we eat to the cars we drive. They even play a role in things like education, healthcare, and environmental protection.
So they're not just like some obscure bureaucratic entities. They're actually shaping the world around us in very real ways.
Exactly. And to really grasp their reach.
Right.
Let's look at some concrete examples.
Okay, hit me with some real-world agencies.
One agency that almost everyone interacts with is the IRS, the Internal Revenue Service. They're responsible for collecting taxes, which, as we know, is essential for any government to function.
Right, but it's not just about collecting taxes, is it? They also have to interpret and enforce tax laws, which can get pretty complex.
You're absolutely right. They conduct audits, investigate potential tax evasion, and even impose penalties. They have a lot of power.
It's almost like they're acting as investigator, judge, and jury all rolled into one entity. Isn't there a risk of like too much power being concentrated in one entity?
Yeah. That's why those safeguards we talked about earlier, like due process and judicial review, are so crucial. The IRS can't just operate as a rogue entity. They have to follow the law and respect individual rights, just like any other government body.
So it's a balancing act between enforcing the law effectively and protecting individual taxpayers from any potential overreach.
Exactly. And speaking of balancing acts, think about the FDA. The Food and Drug Administration. They're tasked with ensuring the safety and effectiveness of a huge range of products, from food and drugs to cosmetics and medical
Oh
devices.
yeah, I know. I always look for their seal of approval when I'm buying medicine.
Yeah.
But what exactly does the FDA do to ensure those products are safe?
Well, they conduct rigorous testing and evaluation before any new product can hit the market. They set standards for manufacturing processes and labeling, and they monitor products even after they're released to catch any unforeseen problems.
So it's not just a one-time check. They're constantly monitoring and evaluating to make sure things are up to par.
Precisely. And their role goes beyond just protecting individual consumers. They also regulate entire industries. Oh, wow.
Which can have a major impact on the economy.
So they're shaping the marketplace while also looking out for consumer safety.
Right.
It's a big responsibility.
It is. And speaking of big responsibilities, let's not forget about the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency. They're on the front lines of protecting human health and the environment.
So they're dealing with issues like air and water pollution, hazardous waste disposal, and climate change.
All of that and more. They set limits on pollutants, monitor environmental quality, and enforce regulations. They have a lot on their plate.
Yeah, it seems like their work is becoming even more critical as we face these growing environmental challenges.
Absolutely. And their role is constantly evolving as we grapple with new scientific discoveries, technological advancements, and shifting political priorities.
It's amazing to see how these agencies are tackling such complex and multifaceted issues that affect all of us. It is, and it really underscores the significance of administrative adjudication in modern society. It's not just about legal technicalities, it's about real-world impact on our health, our environment, our economy, and our daily lives.
As future lawyers, it's crucial to understand the power and reach of these agencies and the ways in which they shapes the legal landscape.
Absolutely. Whether you're interested in corporate law, environmental law, healthcare law, or any other field, you'll inevitably encounter administrative law and the work of these agencies.
Well, this deep dive has given me a much clearer understanding of administrative adjudication, its importance and its complexities.
It's a fascinating area of law and one that's constantly evolving as the role of government continues to expand.
I feel much better equipped to navigate this world now. Thanks for the insights.
You're very welcome. Remember, this is just the beginning. Keep exploring and stay curious.
And to all our listeners out there, thanks for tuning in to LexTalks. Be sure to subscribe for more deep dives into captivating legal topics. We'll see you next time.